Hey everyone. Welcome back with Awakening with Ali. You guys, I'm so honored for today's show. I have such an incredible guest. I have the amazing Dr. Sharnael, and I'm sure you guys already know her, but if you don't, let me tell you a little bit about her before we get into all things. So, Dr. Sharnael is a Swiftfire international author, a naturopathic doctor, conference speaker, experiencer, researcher, specializes in igniting all to the truth and true wholeness of the path of the mind, body, and spirit. Dr. Sharnael has done this in many ways by speaking in over 44 countries, writing 5 books, including The Science of Miracles, Keys to Third Heaven, and The Seer's Handbook. And she's also produced her beautiful crystal oils and decree deck. Dr. Sharnael's passion is teaching, and truth facilitates support to the masses on an international scale through her online classes, her membership, Swiftfire University, on her social media, and her podcast, of course, Dr. Sharnael True TV. Dr. Sharnael, I'm so happy to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me,
Hi.
Ali.
Yeah, you're welcome. So honored and so excited to align and make this happen. So I know we want to get into the science of miracles and that incredible, new creation, your book and everything you're doing. But for anyone that maybe doesn't know you, although I feel like if they don't know you in this space, then they have to do a lot more digging and learning about you. But why don't you give like a quick besides your bio, just a quick little bit about you, kind of how you came into the, naturopathic space, being such a healer, because you've been in it for so long now.
Yes, that is a loaded question for sure. Just like asking anybody, how does anyone get anywhere? My mom and dad. No, just kidding. But yeah, I grew up in the military. My dad was military, and I'm from Montana originally. Traveled mostly in the northern part of the United States, but also lived in England and Germany, and then later went back to college and for a semester over there in University of London. So I really love Europe, love traveling. Um, I had an encounter at 4 with what I guess I'm just going to say it, Jesus. And I had no background in any kind of religion, anything. My parents didn't grow up doing, any of that, but some things happened during that time. And basically, I just had this like immense understanding of some things. And then also just really felt like I wanted to help the world. I just had this immense love and love for humanity, love for people, love for healing. I didn't know how that was going to walk out. Now, a little bit backstory is my dad worked being in the military. I was actually a part of Montauk Project and some other things that were kind of darker. And we were actually stationed in Montauk from 73 to 76, and some things happened there. And even things in the womb. There's just been a lot of weird stuff over time. And so I tend to see things a little bit differently. And not only just because of physical experience of things that happened, but also just traveling, seeing a lot of cultures, understanding or trying to understand different cultures and seeing things from a different view and perspective. But in the process, really, trying to make sense of things. And just like everybody is still doing in this day and age, like trying to make
Yeah.
sense of everything, right? And but so my parents did move to Louisiana, and that move was one of the most difficult for me. But just you know, cultural differences and a lot of differences. And but one of the things that's very common in the South, as you know, coming to Tennessee, is religion is a big deal. And so I was only 13 when I came to Louisiana and started going to church, and went that route thinking, oh my gosh, this is my platform where I'm going to be able to, help people and serve. And it took me a minute to realize, but I finally understood that that wasn't actually my path either. When I say a minute, I mean, I went to high school, I went to Bible school, I went to seminary, and
Wow.
mid-seminary, I was like, I felt called to leave. and it went counter to my desire, because in my mind I had to have a piece of paper to be able to serve. That was what was programmed in my mind, which is complete BS. But I left, and just really went on this path of trying to figure out what was going on with missing time, and who are these things that keep showing up in my house or my living room. And I mean, I had constant stuff where lights would be outside my window, or different things would happen, and then I would be anyway, dreams, visions, a lot of intuition, knowing things about certain things that I didn't make sense or shouldn't know, but then they came to pass. But yeah, in the process, after this little season, I actually was invited to, or was ordained, or commissioned in ministry, even though I left all of that.
Wow.
And I started doing conferences on intuition and psychic abilities in churches. Now, they called it the prophetic movement, but I was helping people connect with source or God, and really trying to help people know that they have the technology within them. And I'm fiercely devoted to neuroscience and the body. And I ended up having my undergraduate, it was in kinesiology and wellness. And so I worked in cardiac rehab, and I worked in psych units, and lots of medical stuff as well. So there was this merging, like a combination of like just the spirit and the body. Divine science and how our body works. Quantum physics was like, still a thing. I love it so much. And then also, how does that mesh with spirituality and intuition and God and all of those things? So, anyway, ended up getting really sick after doing 17 years of conferences. I was on 6 planes a week, speaking at really big engagements, and went back to school actually, because I had gotten so sick, and I found a naturopath that could help me. All the Western stuff wasn't working. I had spent 6 years trying to figure it out, and just staying sick and on tons of meds, and found this one guy who's actually an MD, but very naturopathic. And he was talking about frequency and energy and breathing and stuff that you're into. And, and this is like 15 years ago. So wasn't super popular to talk about like crystals or essential oils in my area of my field anyway, or anything naturopathic, which is kind of interesting. But he got me squared away pretty quickly, just using energy and a lot of other things. It was kind of like your moment where you're like, oh my God, it just happened, but it didn't. And now it's like your life, right? And so I felt, I kept having these dreams about going back to school. I was 37 years old, and here I am with 3 kids, divorced, and I'm feeling like I'm supposed to go back to school and get my doctorate in medicine. And I'm like, oh my God, like I have all this time to do these things, right? Time, money, whatever. But I went back to school to be a naturopath. And at the time I was doing it because when I would go to these conferences, they had seen such a big difference in me after coming back. I had lost 80 pounds. My whole countenance, I'm sure, was changed. My skin was different. I had a different kick in my step because I felt better. And they were like, oh my God, what happened? And I was basically like, oh, I'm doing this, this, and this with energy. And they were like, well, can you teach that here? So then I started, teaching, but I didn't have all the answers because I was baby. I was only four weeks in, 16 weeks into understanding even, that much. So I thought, well, if I go back to school, I'll be so educated. I'll be able to help way more people at these conferences when they come up after and they have all these problems. And I really never saw myself having a practice or like a building. That wasn't really the goal as much as it is just to reverse engineer my own life and be able to help as many people that showed up in my field. But then it did turn into, I got a practice. We bought a wellness center in May 2015, I believe. It flooded like 2 months later. We got 12 feet of water, a big flood down here in Louisiana. And so I was like, okay, I guess that wasn't the thing. But so yeah, and then I was about to start another practice here just 2 or 3 years ago, 2019, with another group of doctors, and went in there, signed everything, got my office, and I was about to go look for furniture. And that Friday, when I went to go look for furniture, they called me and they were like, "Oh, there's going to be a 2-week quarantine or whatever. This may not be the minute you want to start or whatever. Like, we'll give you a call in a couple weeks." And then 2 weeks turned into 4, and then 6, and then 8. And then I was just like, then whenever I found out what all we had to do to be there and everything, with tracing people and the stuff over your face and, all the, I don't know if we're talking code, but I've had my channel kicked off and all that stuff. So I mime everything. But anyway, definitely I had done TV for years, and we moved everything online, but then that all got censored. And when I was telling everybody what was going on in the world, they were just, they just kept removing everything. And I was just like, oh my God. So I'm doing my best to just keeping on. I have over 15,000 patients online. I see patients, through Zoom, which most people did during that whole time anyway. But I do biofeedback. I use my intuitive abilities as well to just work with people and figure out how to get them balanced. But that spiritual aspect is a really important part of just that piece. And then just writing books and getting things out and having people on my show just like you do. And just, we're just working together as a team, all of us who, really want to see humanity in a better place. And the science of miracles and just the giftings that we have been a major part. I also, you'll see cats everywhere, sorry, but I foster animals as well, because this is a big part of frequency, and it's a big part of me anyway. So I've had 98 kittens in the last 3 years now that we just foster, feed, bottle feed, and then
Wow.
once they're 2 pounds, we get them fixed, and then we adopt them out. And a couple times I've accidentally kept a couple.
I'm sure.
But yes, but animals are high frequency, and their biofield is undetectable on some of them. Like the dolphins are undetectable. A horse's biofield is 350 feet. We are usually about 6 feet. I've tested some people who are 14, 16, 20 feet. But the average is about 2 to 6 feet. And cats, this kitty behind me, they will purr at 157 megahertz.
Wow.
And we're 67 megahertz on a healthy adult day. But we can drop with negative things around us, or negative music, art, movies, food. Lots of things can bring us down. People, if we allow it. And then there's things that can bring us up. So it's just a matter of, understanding ourselves, where we're at. For me, my kind of motto is anything that can be measured can be managed. So if we don't know where we are, then how do we know where we're going to get? Like when you're in a GPS, like you're going on your trip, I'm going on a trip coming up. If we're going somewhere, we got to put something in the GPS, but we have to have a starting place too, right? To know how to even get there.
Yeah.
And if we don't know where we are, then we're not going to be able to get to that next place. So I like to measure, where people are as far as their width of their field, their radius, if their chakras are out, if their divine feminine and masculine is balanced. I call this like a soul audit. And basically what I'm seeing is when people are balanced and male and female and their chakras are going in the right direction, I can find out where they are on the map of consciousness. And usually if their chakras are balanced and this is balanced, then their field will grow further. And I think it's personally a protection thing that maybe God just put it in and said, you know what, if you suck, I don't want you to have that big of an influence. I just want your veil to be this big so you don't really hurt a lot of people. And some people are actually inverted. They have no field at all. They just live off of everybody else's because they can't even generate their own energy. So they
Wow.
literally vampire and suck from anything and anybody that will give them energy, which that's a big thing too. So
Wow.
so the Signs of Miracles is kind of like my passion right now, just teaching people about living a miraculous life on a regular basis and not just letting things happen or wondering why they're happening, but actually creating your own life in the positive. And this came out of two beings that showed up in my living room and just downloaded a bunch of information and wrote this book. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got here, what I'm doing and what I'm still doing, and working with you and a lot of other people like you that are just radiant and shiny and wanting to see a better place that we live in. I mean, we have our kids and all this stuff. I know you're having a baby. We want a world for your baby and our babies to be healthy and happy and
Yeah.
to generate something positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your story. I think it was so interesting when you were talking about, when you first moved and you were like, okay, I found my platform, and you thought that that was religion. I think a lot of people, especially in the spirituality space, I know, for me, like, I always thought like, okay, this is kind of like how you're conditioned, right? Okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm supposed to show up for. And then this is the only way to do it. And then when you start to realize that maybe that doesn't align, and there is even programming within that and a system, and it's, and all of a sudden, like when you think like where you are with your heart and on your healing and all these things, like, oh, it's going to be received, and it's not. It's like, oh, wait, what? And you start to realize like, oh, this system doesn't work for me either. And and I always wondered as a young girl, when I really wasn't awake, but I think I was always kind of spiritually aware. I always felt shut down by the church, and I always felt like disappointed by it. And I always felt like just not a connection. I mean, so much so that when, Justin and I, my husband and I, got married, like I said to him, I'm like, I don't want to get married in a church. It just doesn't resonate for me. I want to get married, on the beach and have my feet, like in the sand and, be by water and all of that. And I really felt that, spiritually, of like wanting to be connected that way. And, it wasn't until I went through my postpartum depression, with my first daughter, and, got so dark, that I, honestly found God and source again, and realized that like so much, like you said, was within me and had always been, but I felt like had been pushed away so much because of religion and so many other things that were around me. And once I was able to access that and give myself permission that like, oh, I can be in touch with this all the time and actually be that much more connected to God and source, it opened everything for me. Like it changed my entire perspective, like how you were saying, like my aura, the way I was, my body. I mean, everything. Like it just completely shedded all these like limiting beliefs and all this, like you have to be in a system to like be of, quote unquote godly and this, that, and the other thing. And it was like, no, your spirituality, like your true soul is, connecting, like you were saying, and I was feeling that when you were saying that, I was like, wow, I went through my own experience of that, and really honing in. And I think that's the journey I've been on, is like since then, and experiencing that and coming to, that much lighter side and healing myself and raising my own consciousness. I'm like, same as you. Like, I love that you say that, of like how you're really, working to evolve humanity. Cause I feel the same way. I'm like, wow, I'm at a place now where I've seen myself evolve, by no means perfect, but learning and trying and everything in the process. And, I'm moving forward in my own life and evolving my own consciousness and healing and experiencing it more and more, and how you were speaking to the creating of your own reality, and saying like, wow, if I can do this, like, why wouldn't I share this with other people to be able to do this and live, like you said, happier and healthier lives and be more conscious and evolve humanity, especially with where we are right now, what's going on, and all this, darkness that, is being tried to be pushed upon us, while so many people are trying to be the light and push forward and say like, no, don't be in fear. And, no, that's not true. And I can only imagine. I remember when you were getting censored when you were first speaking in 2020, and I can only imagine how hard that was for you, being that you are such a light worker, such a like a beautiful soul, like wanting to get the information out to truly help people, and just getting like knocked down left and right. Because I went through that with my platforms too, not the extreme you did, but just for speaking out on different things, and it was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how badly like these types of people and souls are being attacked, and how they're censoring, and they're really trying to keep us down. And I think it's beautiful that so many of us have found each other over these last couple of years
Oh
and
yeah.
come together and continue to push through it and find ways around it and rally and speak and just be that light for people that people need. Because I do believe, like you said, like we are in a time right now where not only is it so important, but we're seeing more and more people evolve in consciousness. We're seeing more and more people get kind of fed up by the systems and get sick of everything, or are getting sick and want to be healed, and are coming to you and being like, how do I get better? And it doesn't have to be through the medical system, like you were saying, and it can be through, all these different holistic ways. And I think that that's such a gift, because there are so many ways to heal, and I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, don't get me wrong, like Western medicine exists for a reason. I get it. And, there's some things, obviously emergency and things where it's like, it's a blessing and, you want to have it. But when you're in consistent fear and you're in this like, I must take this or it's not going to work, or I must be on this or something, like it's a different frequency, right? Like all of a sudden you've lowered your frequency and you're dependent on this one thing, when it's like, no, but you could heal yourself and be moving forward and be in a much higher frequency, and that was the thing for me with my postpartum depression. It was like, they wanted me on all these different big pharma or whatever, pharmaceuticals. And my soul, I just remember my soul like screaming at me when I was in the doctor's office and was like, like, like you don't want to be getting on that. And I remember like more of my ego and like, the lower frequency of myself being like, yes, you do, because then you can get right back to like, at that time I was, celebrity styling, and I was doing all this stuff for work. And it was like, you can get your life back. You can just keep going and like kind of essentially, taper this off and just keep moving forward. But my soul was like, no, like you need like real healing, and so I think it's amazing that you really not only speak to, like you said, the science and miracles, but like how healing is such an accessibility. And I love that you bring it to like a place of like how you can measure it, because I think a lot of people are still obviously so skeptical, and they're like, how, and what, like how could that actually work? And I've even experienced that, with breath work. It's like, well, how, and it's like, well, because breathing is your life force. Like, so it's literally within you, like God source gave it within you. So you literally can use it to heal. But if you're not open to that frequency and that connection, right, in those higher realms, then like, yeah, you're not going to experience that healing. So I'm curious for you, with the science and miracles, like, is this book kind of like living in that higher frequency every day in your life? Like, what are people kind of getting as they're reading this and getting to, pick this up and essentially pull your own downloads that you're sharing?
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because, like I said, I had two beings that I got up one morning, walked into my living room, and there were these two, like 14, I don't know, measurements tall, very tall. I have very tall, cathedral ceilings, and these guys, yeah. And I'm going to get emotional, but, when I talk about them, I could feel them in my body, like every cell. I remember
Wow.
walking in, the atmosphere was very different. It was very tangible. It's very like staticky. And I felt like, yeah,
It's
uh,
okay.
it was almost like I had walked into this, the air was different and everything. And there they were. And they had tons of books everywhere, stacked, ancient books. And there had this one desk, very ancient desk, a large desk. And one was standing and one was sitting behind the desk. And I mean, it scared me I was scared, but I was also feeling, I could feel my entire body, more love than I've ever felt. Like in every cell of
Wow.
my body was just immersed with this love. And after the fright, it was just immense love, because I could hear without hearing. They weren't speaking, but I could hear in my mind what they were saying. And I remember probably they were like, oh my God, it's okay, but they had all these books, and I'd come around the desk to look at what this one looked more male and one looked more female. I don't know their names. The tall blonde girl, look, I say she's a girl, I don't know, but she
Sure.
looked like a female version, and the other one looked more male. And I went behind the desk and I looked over to see what he was looking at, and basically I heard, "What do you want?" And I looked at the book that was open had all kinds of records of names of people, dates, what they were sick of, and when they got healed and how they got healed.
Wow.
And it was just record, all these, like, accounting system of all these people. And a lot of it was mostly essential oils, crystals, different, all very different modalities, nothing pharmaceutical, which pharma actually comes from pharmakia, which is witchcraft. But we don't think twice about taking pharmaceuticals, but like, oh my God, essential oils are witchcraft, right? So, I mean, and now it's more trendy.
Sure.
And you can basically get oils at the gas station at this point, but they're all going to be terrible for you, and they all have little bad stuff in them.
Right.
But anyway, going back to the story, basically I heard, "What do you want?" And when I saw everything, I felt just this pressure in my body, and I said, "I want to be a part of this." And one of them, they looked at each other. They kind of were like, "Okay." And they slammed the book. And when the book slammed, I knew they were about to leave, and I felt like grief about it. And then True, I call her True, I don't know her name, but she said, she pointed her finger very like stern and serious, and she said in her mind, tell them they're not truly living unless they're living true.
Mm.
And I felt it in every part of, like, I literally felt it in me. It like echoed and reverberated through the entire living room. I still feel it when I talk about it. And I knew that she wasn't just talking about like little white lies or like fibs or anything. Like, she was like, there's so many layers to unpack of just that one profound statement.
Yeah, I felt that. Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God. And just, still to this day, I'm packing what is true, and that's why I call her True. And that's why my TV show is True TV. And,
Okay.
everything is truth for me, is truth and love are the main everything. It's like my entire life literally changed in that moment. And it became this obsession for actually understanding truth, knowing truth, speaking about truth, living true. And living true isn't just, if I should, if telling someone that their butt looks too big in those jeans or whatever, it's like, who's your partner? Where do you live? Do I buy this house or do I get an apartment? Do I take care of animals? Do I work with the elderly? Do I, what am I putting in my body? What am I putting on my body? What am I listening to? Who am I listening to? What am I watching? Of just every choice that we make, every thought that we have, every word that we speak is either living true or not.
Yeah.
And conscious language is a big piece for me. And
My dog.
okay, I don't know who that is. But so all of it is wrapped up, and the book talks about conscious language. It talks about how we can get into this trap or like a trauma loop. It talks about purgatory, energetic purgatory. It talks about changing timelines and getting out of those loops. Just creating space in your field, and how to make sure that your field is strong and sovereign and radiating. Because the reason why it's called a biofield is your biofield, or aura, whatever it's called, electric belt. A lot of people call it different things, but your field, they call it bio 2, is both radiating out at all times, and then also it's magnetizing back to us. And so what we think about, what we talk about, what we feel is going to change your field. And then we also have a signature DNA code that you were born with. You incarnate into that field and into that code. And that's changeable because epigenetics is real. But that signature code that we have also radiates into the field. So all of us have an individual signature that goes into our radiation into this field that's different than anyone else. And so this field is made up of color and sacred geometry and different codes and numbers and equations. And everything that goes out, we will only get a magnetized match back. So it's very, very, you only get what you are. So whatever you focus on, you make room for. And that's why it's super uber important on like what we're thinking about, what we're talking about, what we're feeling. Feeling actually is the highest as far as magnetization. So if you're thinking and talking about how you want to get that job or that partner, but in your heart you're worried about it or sad, you can actually cancel yourself out and get into purgatory. So basically the code will have mixed numbers that cancel each other out, and you get 0 because you're your own worst sabotage enemy, cancel clear, not you personally, but people in general,
right,
can cut themselves short because they have like mixed energy, like they could be like, oh, I really want a boyfriend, but in your mind you're like, yeah, but remember that last guy, he was an asshole. And you could have that thought and then you cancel it out again. So it's not like denial. It's not like you need to deny your feelings or deny your thoughts. But the word imagination is such a big word. It's to image a nation. And as whatever we think about, we get. Thoughts create things, right?
Mhm.
And Esther,
And that's a real thing. I mean, some
yeah,
people will say like, oh, that's not true. And I'm like, yes, it absolutely is. It's what you're speaking about with our biofields and with frequency and everything. That's why when you were saying with conscious language, it's so important to be aware of how you are speaking. And that was one of the first things I learned when I was going through everything with my own healing, was like, the more I started, like, even though I was nowhere near anywhere out of the darkness, the more I started actually practicing like how I wanted to feel and actually feel it within me, and not even realize I was doing that, but actually doing it and speaking it and being conscious, the more things slowly started to shift. And now being where I am, being so awake to that and aware, like, sure, of course, I'm only human, I have my days, right? But overall, I tap into that and I see such a shift in everything. And I'm like, wow, this is really such a real thing. And like, what a gift and how powerful when you actually allow yourself to tap into that. And like you said, it really is within us. Like it's there, it's our code. There's so much that is actually, put within us through God and source, but it's like, you have to be willing to tap into that. And how incredible that experience. Thank you so much. I know you got emotional, but thank you so much for sharing that. I want people to feel that energy around that, and how this book came to be from that experience. I mean, how profound.
yes, yeah. And if I could leave with anything, one of the biggest energy misses that we have is actually not feeling.
Hmm.
I think that there, with all the name it, claim it kind of stuff, like I get that. I get conscious language, and there is a lot of energy to conscious language. But if we have feelings that we haven't dealt with, they can, your limbic system, which is behind your frontal lobe. Oh, excuse me. Oh, my back. Sorry, I
Oh
just
no,
feel my
you're
back just
okay.
sitting there. Your limbic system will basically store it in your body, in your muscle, in your bones, in an organ. and then it'll still stay dormant until it decides not to, but then it'll start showing signals saying like, hey, it's time to deal with this and move it out. We defrag trauma from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. ish, but most people don't really sleep well during that time, so they're not defragging. And that's when the limbic system, which is like the librarian or the seat of the emotions, takes those traumas that we are exposed to on a daily and says, we're either going to defrag this or we're going to shelf it. And if we don't shelf it, it gets stored. And then eventually the signals show up. And usually that's when we go to the doctor and go, hey, can you help me deal with this? And they just want to turn off the noise, turn off the pain, don't deal with the root. But really it's a signal or a message saying, hey, it's time. This your body wants to get rid of this now. And the biggest thing to do is to go ahead and feel your way, feel the freaking hell out of it. Literally just feel it. And my analogy to this is, let's say, Allie, you had a family member that like did something really crazy, rude to you, and you were hurt. And it was like, oh my God. And some of your viewers may be able to understand, especially in this last 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they did something horrible and betrayed you and betrayed your trust. And you were like, what? And you didn't expect it. And you were just like mortified and sad. And you went to them and you're like, but this hurt my feelings. And why did you do this? And they were just like, whatever. It's you're sensitive, get over it, or whatever, just denied, just completely blew you off. You would have to go to family reunions and everything and be like a lot of energy to lie, basically, and pretend.
Not being the truth of what you speak of. Yeah,
exactly. And that word pretend, to tend to as if it's happening. So basically lying your way through family reunions or meetups or whatever. And basically that takes a lot of energy, number one, but also it is lying. It's not being in your truth.
Right.
But pretend that person finally came around and knocked on your door or called you and said, Allie, you know what? I'm sorry. You're right. I screwed up. I own it. I've never wanted to hurt you. I was never my intention. I don't know what was going on with me that day. Please forgive me, blah, blah, blah. Your body would immediately, a matter of fact, just saying this, your body would immediately relax because you just would feel like, oh, thank you. Oh my God. And your body would just be like,
receive that relief. Yeah.
Yes. Relief, to relive, relief, right? But that is exactly how our emotions are inside of us, is we have been programmed, don't cry, or I'll give you something to cry about. Don't feel anything, be strong, keep going, just toughen up, like suck it up, buttercup, all that, right? We just hustle, miscarriage, and you're back to work the next day. It's just like, just go on. That's life, but really your feelings are knocking on the door going, dude, you're totally denying me. You're not even talking about it. You're acting like I don't exist. You're not even giving me a chance. But the minute, let's say you're pissed off or sad, the minute you can just go like, you know what? I'm sad. Just own it and to be like,
acknowledge it.
Yep. Just say
I say sit in your shit. I had to learn that.
Yeah. And I'm not saying stay there. I'm not saying
totally.
like live in anger, but the minute you can come to terms with, you know what, I feel hate right now. I know that's not the Christian thing to do, but I had one experience where I realized I had a lot of hate and it was showing up in my field, right?
Yep.
So I was collecting people hating because my hate was subconsciously a code going into the field that I had not dealt with. Yeah. So I kept magnetizing haters. And I was like, why is this showing up? But it's just a mirror, right? It's just a mirror to say, it's a gift to say, hey, you know what? This is in your field. Clean it up.
Yeah.
And so the minute I was like, oh my God, I do hate. What do I hate? I hate this. I hate that. I hate this person. I hate what she's doing, and I had a friend call me that day and she was like, hey, are you good? I'm like, you know what? I just given myself permission to hate.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I hate this, that, this, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like pissed off at the world. And she was like, oh, okay, well, I'll let you go, Sharon. It seems like you're having a bad day. I'm like, you know what? I actually feel amazing. I feel
Right.
like
Because you released it.
I was just saying it. I was honest.
Yeah.
And within minutes, literally, the person that I was dealing with that was hate, I was
Yeah.
feeling hate towards, within a week called me. And I mean, I first felt relief,
Mhm.
but then this person called and was like, you know what, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 blah. She was
Wow.
released
Mhm.
because my code had changed.
Mhm.
And people will only submit to your lowest denominator.
Mm.
So anything in your field will show up as a match to come back to you to tell you this is here, deal with it. And then
Yeah.
we get to deal with it. So the more we can work on us, everything is an inside job. The more we work with us, the more our field changes. And the more we can imagine, once we clear those things, then we imagine or image what we do choose to show up in our field, and we concentrate on that, and we feel, what does it feel like now that I have this job or this partner or this purpose or this car or whatever the situation. And now that I'm on the beach on my vacation and I feel the water and I hear the waves, and you just do this imagination technique, and it's like things just start showing up and rolling up, and
Mhm.
there you created it.
Yeah. Wow. So powerful. I'm going to have you back on because I know we both have to wrap our
Yes,
time
yes.
here, but this was so powerful. And thank you so much for also diving into emotions and sharing that, because I think so many people, like you said, they choose not to feel, they choose to kind of fragment, their trauma and pretend like, shut this down, or society tells us not to cry and all these things. And it's like, you're right. It's like when you allow yourself to feel it, then everything starts to shift, and then you can work on your healing. And I love that you brought it back to each of us too, of like, we have to heal ourselves also to help raise the collective, for others, for things to shift, for things to work. So anyone that's listening, if you are in this space, just know, you are meant to hear this. You are meant to receive this. Dr. Sharnael, thank you so much for being here. Tell us where we can find you and follow you, and I will definitely have you back on the show.
Yes, I'd love to come back. And I know I'm going to have you in the next month or so. We're going to
Yes,
do
I
a
can't wait.
panel on breath work, and I can't wait to have you back. You've been on my show before, but I'm looking forward to having you back. If you go to Swift Fire, Swift as in quick, fire.org, you can find my podcast. You can find my resources. I have tons of digital classes on muscle testing, on imagination activation. I have stuff on dreams and visions. I have classes on the science of miracles. I have all 5 of my books. The Seer's Handbook is here too. Just talking about I have a keto book for like health. I have I have my biofeedback, so I could do that remote. So even if you're in Australia or New York or wherever you are, I can actually do this all through the phone and send you frequencies, see what's going on, diagnostic, get 30 different reports on hormones, EEGs, sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, electrical sensitivities, spiritual sensitivities. I can test your field and see what's going on in the field. And then I can send those frequencies back to you so we can get harmonized and energetically sound. But yeah, I forgot I did pull a card too. I have this card deck, and this is the last thing I'll say, but this is Angelite, and it says that it offers tranquility and peace to all, calm, nurturing vibes equal to no other. This crystal helps tap into higher consciousness, increases intuition, angelic activity, since we're talking about that. Crystals also help support the throat chakra, pure communication, the decree. Every card that I have has what it does physically. It has a decree to match it, which is I am fully God supported and secure. And then it has 4 companion oils: geranium, thyme, vetiver, and pine. So that is for anybody watching and or you, Allie. But yeah, go to swiftfire.org. I'm on YouTube, Instagram. I have a blog, my podcast, but I would love to work with anybody and meet your people. And I can't wait to have you on my show. And just thank you so much for
Yes,
getting me
thank you
on.
so much. Thank you for ending with that beautiful card as well, guys. I hope you absolutely received this, felt this. Go find, follow Dr. Sharnael. She is amazing. If you are looking for healing, if you're looking for feedback, anything, truly go find her. Everything will be in the show notes, you guys. She is such a gift. I truly hope this episode really just awakened in you and activated you on a new level. Dr. Chanel, thank you so much. It was so much fun to get to chat with you. Love and blessings, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye, guys. Thank you.